In the Touch of Falling Star activities, we're going to look at craters. And in this activity, we're actually going to make some craters. And here's a list of the materials that you're going to need. So pause this so you can read them and look at the sizes and the amounts. And very importantly, the safety, wearing goggles. There's going to be some spray, shouldn't be any meteorite fragments. And the first step is to place a 3 to 5 centimetre layer, even layer, over the bottom of the tray. And you can smooth it out, level it out with the piece of cardboard. Then you're going to sprinkle a very thin layer of cocoa powder on the surface, and if you've got a few tiny gaps, that's not going to be a big deal. So you're going to measure the height of your drop with a meter stick, and suggest that you start with 50 centimetres, about 20 inches above, and remove the meter stick and then drop the rock onto the flour with the cocoa surface. Let any settle, and then you're going to remove the rock, but draw and measure the ejector pattern and the rays, and on the diagram note the measurements, the diameter, the number of rays, anything else about its appearance. And once you've done your first test and you've got your data, you can smooth the surface again with a piece of cardboard, add a tiny bit more cocoa powder if you need to, and then decide what you are going to change. And you're going to take 5 different measurements using that same change. What variable are you going to change? And so design a data table showing that change and the data that you will collect. So collect that data, analyze it, and write a conclusion. What do you notice about the patterns having changed one of the variables? Now, name 2 other variables that you could investigate if you were going to complete 2 more sets of trials. Now, for each of those 2 new variables, you can obviously do the experiment, but you can also just name the variable and predict what you think your results would show. And here is a possible data table just to check what you've done. And looking at an actual crater, what would have made this crater? Perhaps need to know a little bit more about it. Meteor crater in Arizona, and it's over 1 kilometre wide, just a bit short of a mile, probably 3/4 of a mile wide. And look at the other dimensions, that it's about the height of the Washington Memorial there, and there's a rim that's been added to the ground level around it. So what might have happened to the meteorite that made that crater? In your test, you remove the rock. We don't see one here. What has happened to it? It is thought that this crater was formed by a nickel-iron meteorite, one of the metal meteorites, about 50 metres across. So you've got a scale meteorite in the diagram that's there, and that it happened about 50,000 years ago. And some of the dimensions have changed with erosion, depositing, etc. But Arizona is quite dry, so unlike other parts of the world where erosion has nearly eradicated meteorite crater evidence, the one in Arizona is very visible. So here are a few suggestions. The meteorite travelling at high speed through space, as it hits the atmosphere, half of it will have disappeared. But then that glowing mass coming through the atmosphere, the meteor, hits the ground, becomes then a meteorite, and most of the meteorite was vaporized on contact, but you still can find some fragments. And if you want to investigate more about meteorites, Touch a Falling Star resource investigating meteorites activity, and on the same site, other meteorite resources.